What are your plans? What are your visions? What are your dreams? What are your goals for Tobago? What would you like to see? What does a transformed Tobago look like? Yeah, so I mean, let's have that conversation. Let's talk. But I want my DJ to play that election song again for me. I want those of you who are listening to hear me. It's a very, very catchy tune. You would find that I would kind of dance when I when I hear it. And you know, later today we will hopefully be joined by Mr. Watson Duke, leader of the Progressive Democratic Patriots. He will be on later on today with me, hopefully, and he will come to bring his brand of zest to the PDP 2 hours on the street 91.9 FM. So this is your girl Tasha Grace Boris, PDP candidate for Tobago West. I want to be your candidate and I want to be your representative. I want that at the end of the election season that we can all say that we made the best choice for us, and I hope that I am the best choice for you. So here we are on Transformation Thursdays. DJ Mega Vibes, can you please put that song back on for a second so that we could hear that? Very, very, very excited to hear this song because
91.9 FM now.
Yo, this is Trinidad presented for Watson Duke. Tasha B representing Tobago East and West. Digest. PDP, feel the power, feel the power, feel the power of the Tobago fighter. Feel the power, feel the power, feel the power of the Tobago fighter. Boom. Watson Duke, he coming down. From door to door, he coming strong. PDP, we on the ground. And we not running from the sun. Fixing your roof and all your drains. Tobago could never be the same. PNM is a set again. We not voting PNM again. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. PDP party, them is the best. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. Watson Duke will relieve your stress. Boom. PNM lead the place in a mess. Old and the young coming out of the nest. The 10th of August to do what is best. Time to put PNM to rest. When you on the road to success, Tobago tourism will be the best, yes. Will be the best, yes. What we call that? Watson Duke. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. PDP party, them is the best. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. PDP party, them is the best. Feel the power, feel the power, feel the power of the Tobago fighter. Feel the power, feel the power, feel the power of the Tobago fighter. Feel the power, feel the power, feel the power of the Tobago fighter. Feel the power, feel the power, feel the power of the Tobago fighter. When them sleep, when them sleep. When Tasha out on the street, when them rest, when them rest. Duke done beat them down in the rest. When Duke hit the road on the road to success, Tobago tourism will be the best, yes. Will be the best, yes. Watson Duke, PDP, Tasha B. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. Time for we to put PNM to rest. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. Tasha B, she is the best, yes. Feel the power, feel the power, feel the power. Yo, this is Trinidad presenting for PDP. Watson Duke, Tasha B. Beat them in the east, beat them in the west. Rah!
Well, you hear that digest, and the zest starting this morning on Transformation Thursdays. Oh, that song is very, very, extremely catchy. Very, very catchy. So for those of you just tuning in, this is Tasha Grace Boris, PDP candidate for Tobago West. And according to the song, that is the best in the West. Digest. So we are talking about transforming Tobago this morning. We are talking about transforming our island. We are talking about what plans, what goals, what dreams, what visions do you have to transform the island of Tobago? For those of you who are tuning in, just tuning in, I would give you the number again to WhatsApp me. That number is 734-6355. Please send me a message. We're talking about transformation. So that I would start off the conversation with the PDP mandate. So I have the PDP mandate in my possession at this time. And one of the things that I want to speak about that was written in our mandate back in 2017 was the idea of empowering our communities to take care of themselves. That is what we call our community development mandate or community development initiative. And what it does is really transform the way that communities manage themselves. no longer would we have village councils. We want to elevate village councils to the level of community councils. So we're talking about persons in the community. And we would develop a system to have these persons appointed in a free and fair and democratic manner. And the idea is that these persons would be responsible for development in each community. And they would work alongside officials in the Division of Community Development as well as in the Division of Finance. Because we envision that a PDP-led THA is going to decentralize a lot of its power into these community councils with respect to the development at the community level. So that we want to have standard budgetary allocations for each community to drive development in communities. So we're talking about transforming our communities. We are putting the power back into the hands of the people to determine what kind of development they would like to see in their individual communities. Now, the beautiful thing about Tobago is that no one community is the same. Every community brings their own unique culture, they bring their own unique history, they bring their own unique, they bring their own unique nuances, yeah? Because country people different to town people. Speyside people different from Roxborough people. You know, Crown Point people different from Scarborough people. People bring their own ideals and their own value system to their communities. And each community has a major selling point. The thing that has not happened is that we have not looked at our communities individually to see how we can create economic centers within these communities to be able to drive the entire Tobago economy. Now, the Tobago economy is largely a retail-based, distribution-based type economy, where we have goods coming in and they are sold back to the population, and then we have services being provided within these sectors, whether it be the tourism sector, whether it be in the private sector, other private sector businesses, and even at the level of government provides services. But we're talking about expanding the idea of having economic centers reside in our community. So let me make an example of what this can look like. Let's take the village or the community of Buku, for example. Buku is one of the most beautiful, picturesque, tourist-type towns that we have on the island. It has some of the most pristine, prime beachfront that we have on the island. And when you look at the potential that is there for Buku to evolve into the ideal tourist town, that people would leave wherever they are living, whether they be living in Tobago or they come over from Trinidad or they come from outside, they leave wherever they are to come and spend the weekend or a couple days in Buku, because Buku has this beautiful beach. Buku has a nice quaint town. You have nice restaurants, you have your bars, you have your nightlife setup, you have your healing with horses, which is your alternative tourism type products. You have the people of the village who are able to do whatever, whether it be sweets, whether it be cuisine, whatever you have it. You have the craftsmen on the beach. You have the integrated facility where they can have goat racing, so that you have a number of things that are taking place in that little space that can encourage somebody. Yes, I want to spend a weekend away. I'm feeling tired. I'm feeling drained. So I want to go to Buku. Because if you look at, for those of you who know about maracas in Trinidad, if you see maracas on a weekend, you can't move, you can't find parking, because maracas has become a sojourn that people make on a weekend basis in Trinidad. They have to go get their bacon shack, they have to go. And Maracas is not as beautiful a beach as Buku is. So you can see the potential that is there for Buku, for persons living in Buku, to really create an economic center around that tourism product that exists on that end of the island. And this is what we're looking at. We're looking at each individual community We're looking at the strengths that they have. We're looking at their cultural history. We're looking at anything that can be used to monetize that village so that people can come into that village for whatever reason and spend money and bring investment into the communities and empower the persons in the communities and create sustainable jobs so that people don't have to leave where they are living to look for jobs on the outside, that there is enough employment within the community for persons who are looking for employment to be able to be gainfully employed. And in order for that to be accomplished, we need to invest at the level of our communities. And this is one of the aspects, the very important aspects of the PDP mandate, that community investment program, which means that we want to have standard budgetary allocations for each community in Tobago. So I gave Buku as an example to start. Let me give another example. I had the privilege of visiting a farm in Goldsboro, Mr. Murray's farm in Goldsboro. Good morning, Mr. Murray, if you are tuned in at this time. And, you know, he had this decent-sized plot of land, and he was growing sweet peppers in abundance. He was growing peppers in abundance. And in my mind, I'm like, well, Goldsboro has some of the best planting land in Tobago. And if we were to plant acres of peppers, and the peppers were huge, they were beautiful to look at, beautiful colors, they were healthy, the leaves were healthy, the fruit was healthy, I could talk all morning about those peppers, but it was a great product in its raw form. And I thought if we were to expand this and just focus on just pepper sauce, one product out of Brand Tobago, because in my mind I see Brand Tobago as being different things. Brand Tobago is our culture. Brand Tobago is our food. Brand Tobago is our intellectual human resource, because we have a number of brilliant minds on the island. Brand Tobago is our music. We have a lot of up-and-coming young musicians who are making their mark in Tobago at this time. So Brand Tobago comprises of many different aspects. So one of the aspects of Brand Tobago obviously is our food. And some of the best pepper sauce that I've tasted in my life have come from persons in Tobago. So let's just say we want to monetize this pepper sauce product. And that Goldsboro, that community there, is that community that is locked the market on pepper sauce in Tobago, because we don't want our communities competing with each other. Yeah, we want to be able to differentiate the products that are being offered in different communities, so that if it is that coming out of Goldsboro, we have the processing of these beautiful peppers into different types of pepper sauces. And the role of the THA in all of that is to ensure that the investment is put in the communities to set up the industry, to ensure that we have adequate acreage for anybody who wants to farm peppers, that we have the agro-processing facilities set up in such a way that we can immediately have the product processed up to world-class standards. And the THA's role in that is just to facilitate the export of that, the marketing and export of that product. So the people in Goldsboro would be responsible for taking that pepper from the ground, from the seedling, to the bearing fruit, to the picking of that fruit, to the sending of it to the processing facility to be processed, for it to be processed and packaged and labeled and boxed. And the only job of the Tobago House of Assembly is to ensure that we can find the markets for that product and export that product. We have a huge market in Trinidad. We have Tobagonians living in Trinidad. We have Trinidadians who love our products. We have that as a first market. We have a regional market. We have a number of persons in the small islands, Grenada and St. Lucia and St. Vincent and Barbados and these places that have family ties to Tobago, to Trinidad and Tobago, who would support our ventures. We have a huge market in the diaspora. These are the things that we want to explore, so that village of Goldsboro, when we export that product, that money, that foreign direct investment is coming back to them to continue the development of their island. This is what we're talking about. This is Transformation Tuesdays. Thursdays, sorry. Oh my gosh, I'm going back to Tuesday. This is Transformation Thursdays. We're talking about transforming Tobago. So that idea of brand Tobago, pepper sauce is just but one product that we can have in a slew of products that make up brand Tobago. Not only do we just have like pepper sauces and pickled stuff and that kind of thing. We also have our sweets. Our sweets. I worked on the port. And every time the boat came in, the first thing most Trinidadians would do is come out of that area where they're disembarking the boat and go straight to the sweets that are being sold, whether it be the red mango, the bene ball, the sugar cake, the nut cake. Tobago, they come to Tobago to buy these sweets in abundance. Why haven't we managed to monetize this product? So if it is that we have a community that has a number of people who are able to make these sweets and are able to, make them to the highest quality standard, then that is their contribution to brand Tobago. That is what puts that community on the map. That is what we sell. So that in every product we package from Tobago, on the labeling, we could include information about the community that product came from, so that people are learning about our history, people are learning about our culture, people are learning about the people in our communities and how we got to that point. Because all of that is part of marketing. We need to monetize brand Tobago. For far too long, we have had great ideas, but nowhere to take them. We have had great ideas, but we have not been able to establish the linkages between the communities and the Tobago House of Assembly and the markets that we need to take these products to. So everybody has been in their little corner doing something. So Miss Mabel doing sweets, and Miss James, she making pepper sauce, and this one she sewing, and that one over there doing tambu bamboo, and this one over there baking dirt oven bread. But we need to come together. We need unity. Because the only way that we are going to advance ourselves as a people is if we come together and understand that the goal is to get our communities going. The goal is to create sustainable employment for persons across the spectrum in our communities. This is Transformation Thursdays. I want you guys to text me. Please send me a message on 734-6355. I want to hear what are your thoughts, what are your plans, what are your dreams, what would you like to see in Tobago? So I'm just talking about the PDPs, the Progressive Democratic Patriots, one aspect of the mandate that we wrote back in 2017, because we envision communities standing alone. We envision our communities being independent within themselves to create a stronger, more viable Tobago, more vibrant Tobago. So when you think about our electoral districts, right? We have 12 electoral districts. Even if we are able to set up economic centers, one economic center in each electoral district, you're talking about 12 economic centers being set up across 12 electoral districts in Tobago, 12 more than we have today. Because for today, we essentially have zero. And we are talking about creating economic centers that can drive our economy. We are talking about economic centers. And I mean, all of the research and these things have to be done, And that will be done, and that is being done at this time, because we have, if it's one thing Tobago has, we have the intellect on this island. That is what we have. We have the intellect on this island who are able to do the work and do it well and bring the ideas back to the table. Because they will do their assessments within the communities. They would see what are the best things that we can monetize in these communities. And it might be traditional things like agriculture or fishing or these kinds of things. Or it might be more innovative, technology-driven type solutions. Whatever it is, at the end of the day, we must be able to say that tourism economic center that we set up in Buku is bringing in $20 million per year to the community of Buku. That economic center that we have set up in Goldsboro is bringing in $50 million per year in Goldsboro, that the economic center that we set up, or we continue, because let me correct myself, there is an economic center that is currently working in Castara. Yeah, so let me correct myself very early. There's an economic center on the tourism front that is working in Castara. So that when we collaborate, because it's not about going in there and take over, it's about, because they have been doing what they've been doing, and they've been doing it well without interference. And the thing is that the Tobago House of Assembly now has to take a facilitatory role in these things. We cannot have all our hands in the cookie jar. We cannot do everything. And there are people who are qualified to do these things, and they've been doing it well for years. We have to give people with the expertise and the experience the opportunity to get the thing working. So when we go there and collaborate with the persons in Castara to drive a further development of their economic center there, it means that we can sit and calculate that economic center in Castara is bringing in $100 million per year. That an economic center in Crown Point is bringing in $150 million per year, because Crown Point would have more of the tourism type stuff. They would have more hotels and guest houses and bars and restaurants. And when the place starts to open again, when the borders are open again, because certainly more marketing has to take place at the domestic level, because right now that is the market that we have. We have persons in Trinidad who want to come and enjoy Tobago again, and this is an opportunity that I want Tobagonians to don't look a gift horse in the mouth. We do have issues with our customer service. I have to call a spade a spade. I live here, and sometimes it's like I'm begging to spend my money right here. And all, it cannot be like that. We cannot be like that. If it is that we want our island to progress, it starts with us. It starts with the individual. Whatever job you do, that is not where you may stay in life. Even if you start off as a waitress or somebody working in a store or whatever it is, that may not be your station in life. But in whatever you do, give your best. 100% of your effort, give your best. It takes nothing to smile at a customer. It takes nothing to say, good morning, sir, ma'am, how can I help you? It takes nothing to say, look, I have this product. Are you interested in that? It takes nothing. And let me tell you, as somebody who has worked in the service industry for years, first impression counts. First impression sometimes is the only impression you give. Because some of our visitors, they only have the opportunity to interact with you the one time they come to your establishment. But you know what happens? Once they have an excellent interaction, when they go back home, they're talking about you. They're saying, I went to D&D's surf shop, and there was a young lady there, and she was so nice to me. So if you're ever in Tobago, go to D&D's surf shop and ask for Deandra. She gave me excellent service. And that is how you get repeat customers, and that is how you get new customers. Word of mouth is still king in marketing.
Indeed.
As much as we on social media and as much as we on to advertising and all different aspects of marketing, word of mouth is still king. And word of mouth could make you or break you. And I'm saying that COVID has presented an opportunity for us in Tobago to really step back and take stock of where we're at in terms of that tourism thrust. We are competing with islands. We are competing with territories that have that have tourism as their mainstay. They have it down to an art and a science. And they, right now, they are doing everything in their power to get persons to come and visit their islands. So if they already had great service, they would take that service up 10 and 20 notches just to get people back. So that is why we've already started on the back foot in Tobago. We have the opportunity. We already have a built-in market in Trinidad. I'm saying to you, my Tobago brothers and sisters, because we have to do it, because I have to sell my island wherever I go. Let us do better. Let us treat each other better. Let us treat our visitors better. Let us show them what real Tobago love look like. Let us show them what real Tobago love look like. We can compete with the rest of the world with respect to tourism. We can. It's not for a lack of natural resources. We have some of the most beautiful beaches in the Caribbean. We have some of the most beautiful waterfalls.
Certainly.
Our main ridge is untouched and unspoiled. We have many things going for us. But the things that we have to improve on is our service delivery. And let's take this time to work on that. Let's take out the time to examine our own biases. Because I know we bias sometimes. Somebody walks in the establishment and you watch them up and down and you tell yourself they ain't have no money. and it shows in the way that you deal with them. And I'm saying that you can't make these assumptions. Everybody who walks into your establishment is a customer, is a potential customer. Whether they buy anything or not, they are a customer, and they deserve the highest level of service that you can afford to them at that time. So we want to be able to, in our communities, we want to be able to say, look, I see Winston Pereira talking about, oh, you like my turtleneck? Oh, gosh. I saw turtle and I went to leatherback turtles because one of the conversations I was having a couple weeks ago is the fact that I don't even hear about turtle watching in Tobago.
Exactly. And that is
something,
lucrative.
that is a huge market that we are sleeping on.
Yep.
That during turtle nesting season, we can set up that industry and with all the protections. Because we're talking about having something that the rest of the Caribbean don't have. We have a turtle nesting site in Tobago. And we don't even have, not that of any that I know of. I've not heard of any turtle watching tours.
Tashia, you know one thing. We have many NGOs that are set up here on the island geared towards community development, geared towards environmental protection and advocacy. And also we have things, just as you're talking about turtles and turtle watching, we have Save Our Sea Turtles.
Yes.
So there are people on the island with expertise pertaining to everything that you have been discussing so far. What I wanted to ask you is, do you think that there are significant gaps in the relationship between certain divisions of the Tobago House of Assembly and the members of Parliament? Particularly in terms of community development, in terms of tourism. How do you think you can rectify that?
It appears that, and I mean, this is just me giving my layman opinion. Do not cuss me for it, please. It appears that there is little or no communication between the members of the Tobago House of Assembly and the MPs in Parliament. And ideally, and this is what I believe should happen, the MPs in Parliament, their primary role is really supposed to be representing the interests of the Tobago House of Assembly in the Parliament, you know. Because they can't be unaware of what is taking place on the ground in Tobago, because the THA is the body that is responsible for the day-to-day administration of the island. They cannot not know what is going on in the THA, because they will not then know how to best advance the interests of Tobago at central government level. So there has to be more than just dialogue. We have to see, because people will have their different forums. The two MPs are in the highest forum in the land, which is the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. And the people of Tobago have to be assured that when the MPs open their mouth to speak on whatever issue that may affect Tobago, it comes not from a personal standpoint, because when you're an MP, you cannot speak from your personal opinion standpoint. Neither are you supposed to speak from a party standpoint. You're supposed to speak from the standpoint of, I am fully aware of what is taking place on the ground in Tobago. I am fully aware that this is what the people of Tobago want. I'm fully aware of what the THA intends to do to address this issue. And if it needs the national spotlight, my role is to put the national spotlight on this thing in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. That is the job of the MP. The job of the MP is to represent the THA, because the Chief Secretary cannot stand up in Parliament and speak on behalf of Tobagonians. And even all of that probably needs to change, because the office of the Chief Secretary is the highest office in the island of Tobago. There should be provisions for that person, the person who holds that position, to at least address the Parliament ever so often. to give account of what is taking place in Tobago, because you're giving account to the nation. You're giving account to the nation. You're giving account to Trinbagonians who live outside. And maybe if that person, that office, has to do that, has to stand in the House of Parliament and speak to his or her leadership of the THA, then maybe we would take the office a little bit more seriously. Right? So that the PDP is advocating. And not just advocating, we have it in place. The two persons who are aiming to represent you in Parliament from the Progressive Democratic Patriots, myself and Mr. Watson Duke, we would be the flag bearers for the Tobago House of Assembly in Trinidad. So that when a budget is read and Tobago is given its 2 paragraphs out of a 25-page document, that we as the MPs should stand up, and depending on what those 2 paragraphs say, is either we're in agreement or we're not in agreement. And I'm telling you, if we're not in agreement, they will hear the length and breadth of both of us. Right? There must be that collaboration between the offices of the members of Parliament and the Tobago House of Assembly. And I would welcome the day that I would see our future Chief Secretary, Mr. Fali Augustine, good morning, stand and address the 41 members of the lower house in Parliament and all the members of the upper house from the Senate, standing as the chief representative for the island of Tobago. I would cry on that day, because it would mean to me, if I see that, when I see that, because it will happen, that Tobago is truly side by side, that 2 truly equals 39, that we have been given our respect, that our chief servant, because that is what the chief secretary is, you know. Don't get it twisted. It is the chief servant. Anybody who is coming to you from a position of they own you, or you work for me, or you have to do what I say, that's not leadership. The chief secretary is the chief servant of Tobago. He has to advance our interests. That is what has to happen. And the day that I can see our chief servant stand in Parliament and speak on behalf of this island, I would know that a great part of my job is done. Because we would have achieved the equality of status that we have always been fighting for. And you know, sometimes I get I have a range of emotions when I listen to especially Trinidadians speak about Tobago and Tobagonians, because they don't understand. They don't understand this struggle. They don't understand our history. They don't understand how it feels to be like a bastard child. They don't understand. So that when they speak from their place of Trinidadian privilege, they take so many things for granted. You know, one simple thing they take for granted down there, the simple access to transportation. I could remember when I was going to university in Trinidad. And as late as I would study sometimes, I know that if I went out on the main road, 9 times out of 10 I go get a maxi within 5 to 10 minutes. No matter what time of day or night. There are certain places in Tobago that if you don't leave Scarborough to go there, you cannot get transportation after 8 o'clock. To this day, this is 2020, and something as simple as transportation is an issue for a number of persons who live in the countryside. That is a major issue. So that when people speak from their place of privilege, they don't understand how blessed they are to have access to some of the things they have access to. Another thing that they take for granted in Trinidad is access to private medical care. And we will talk about the healthcare system at some point in time. But in Tobago, and I had a most recent experience with this. On our very first roof repair project in Bethel, one of our workmen, he was cutting down some tree branches above the roof to be able to have the workmen come and pull up the galvanize. And he accidentally hit down a Jack Spaniard's nest. And one of the Spaniards went in his ear. One stung him in his eye got swollen. And one went down deep in his ear. And you know that man stayed on that roof, working on that roof, that Jack Spaniard buzzing in his ears. His eye is almost swollen shut. But because he's so committed to the team, good morning, Sherwin, my darling. That's his name, Sherwin. Right? Part of our extraction team. Good morning, extraction team. Sherwin had a Jack Spaniard in his ears and one stung him in his eye. And he continued working on that roof with those guys. He only came off that roof when he couldn't take the buzzing in his ear anymore. And that was 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a holiday. And immediately I asked somebody to leave and go and see if he could go to the drugstore and get something to treat with this ear. And you know, not a drugstore was open. Not one drugstore was open at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a holiday. So it means that Tobagonians can't get injured on a holiday because your only redress is to go to the hospital and wait for 10 hours. No private doctor is open on a holiday. So that in Trinidad, anything happens to you at any time. You could waltz into West Shore, waltz into Sinclair, waltz into St. Augustine, waltz into Medical Associates. They have access to private healthcare 24/7, 365. That man had a Jack Spaniard in his ear and we could not even get a syringe from the drugstore because no drugstore was open. So imagine, and that is relatively minor compared to what people may have to go to the hospital for, because the hospital is really a kind of accident and emergency thing. You want to deal with major situations there. So as simple as that happened to him, shouldn't our communities have doctors on call? Shouldn't each community have a community doctor or a team of community doctors, so that if something happens, your child gets sick, an elderly person takes ill, but it's not so serious as they may need hospital intervention, but a doctor can treat with it. Well, Mr. Pereira, the health centers were closed. Right? The health centers were closed. I want to see a Tobago where things like that would be a thing of the past, because I don't know. Suppose my friend had an allergy that we didn't know about or he didn't know about. Would he have been left to wait in the hospital for 10 hours for care? I want to live in a Tobago where things like that are a thing of the past. So we're talking about Transformation Thursdays. We're talking about transforming Tobago. So I want you guys to text me. The number to text me is 734-6355. I want to hear your ideas. I just gave you one to think about, which is our community development initiative, taking the investment, capital investment back into the communities. And this is outside of capital projects, This is outside of major projects that we would want to do to transform the island in a general sense. But we're talking about community transformation here. I've spent the last 3 weeks doing roof repair projects in Canaan Bonaccord, and I've walked the district for the last 3 days. And our sidewalks are in a mess. Our roads are in a mess. There are vacant lots all overgrown with bush. We have fences that are overgrown with bush. We have power lines that are jumbled up. I mean, there's so much that could be done to transform our communities. Our communities need a facelift. And there are young persons who are unemployed. There are persons who are unemployed in communities who can be employed to give our communities that much needed facelift. I want to drive around Tobago and just see gated community type things all over. There will be no gates. But I want to see manicured lawns. I want to see nice landscapes. I want to see properly kept sidewalks. I want to see well-maintained roads. That is what I want to see. That is what I want to see. 5 years, 10 years. What do you want to see in Tobago? I want to see parks. Yes, thank you for that, Ria Francis. Places where families could congregate, have picnics, play football, whatever it is, you name it, and there is safety. One of the things as part of our mandate that we want to introduce is community security. So we want to change the THA Act to create a local police service in Tobago. So this is aside from the TTPS. Using a community policing model. And we will have a community police post in each of the 12 electoral districts and 4 full-fledged stations to serve the island. So this is policing at a community level. So that all of these minor matters, you may have a minor disagreement with a neighbor or something like that. This is what community policing is about. You're talking about training these persons to be able to mediate. You're talking about them providing that patrol aspect so that persons could get that sense of security within their communities. And yes, the TTPS has a more major role to play in the overall policing of a society and our island, because they would look at other things. They would look at the big crimes. They would look at, and I would hope that larger crime would be a thing of the past, because if we're developing our communities and we're dealing with the issues at the level of the community, then we should see a consequent decrease in certain types of crime. But the police, yes, the TTPS, they would have their role, but the level of the community police is to ensure that someone is always watching over you. Someone has your back. That they know the people in the community, that they know Miss Mabel up the road, she's in a wheelchair, and they check in on her ever so often to make sure that she's okay. They know that Mr. James is bedridden and he just gets a visit from a nurse in the morning and the evening, but he lives alone. That they can check in on Mr. James. That they know that there's a single mother, Miss Deborah, that she has 4 children, and that they can check in on her to make sure that she's okay. And they can check in on her boys to make sure that they're staying out of trouble. This is what community policing should look like. Because the persons who are responsible for implementing that and being the implementers, they should know the people in the community, because they should come from the communities. That is the kind of transformation that we are looking at in this Tobago. And as the weeks go on, we will talk more about the transformations, but I want to hear from you guys. Please send me a message, 734-6355. I will try to see if we can take some calls. The number to call is 717-9591. 717-9591.
You know, Tasha, I was thinking about something as you were speaking about investing in community and getting international investment in community. What I've noticed, particularly with the Castara model, is that there are several international entities, such as the United Nations Development Program, such as the Global Environmental Fund. They directly invest in Castara. Right, because you see, it's a model that is not just lucrative in terms of how it looks and how it's set up.
Right.
But there are several sub-entities in Castara that are geared towards environmental conservation, and they have the natural resources to do it.
Yes. So that you're talking about creating a self-sustaining model that has different poles that makes up, you know, that model.
Green spaces.
And yes, well, part of that is very, very important, because we have to have a conversation about how climate change would affect Tobago in the short, medium, and long term.
Castara has been spearheading the effort in terms of climate change adaptation in Tobago.
And that is very commendable. And that is why when we have people doing things right, and we have people being successful at the things that they do, then we have to see how best we can take the foundation of what they have done and see if we can replicate that in our communities. Because if it's working for tourism in Castara, it may work for agriculture in some place else. It may work for innovation and technology in some place else. So that we have to see, and again, I keep saying that we have some of the brightest minds in this country, resident in Tobago and from Tobago. And I would want to send a call. I'm sending a call out for those of you who are in the diaspora. Tobago needs you. Tobago, your home, needs you. We need your expertise. We need your guidance. We need your networks. Yeah? We want you to come back home and help develop this island. We want you to contribute, even if you can't physically come back home. We need to set up a system where we are able to glean from you your expert opinions, your plans, your whatever it is. We need to provide that opportunity for persons who are living on the outside to be able to contribute in some tangible way to the development of our island. It is critical. 2020 could be the year that jumpstarts Tobago's development, or it could be the year that we fall over a precipice. We have to start thinking that the box no longer exists. They talk about thinking outside the box. There is no box. COVID mash up the box. So that we have to do everything in our power now to see how best we can position ourselves to compete on the world stage. And all of that work has to be done now. All of that preparation and planning and research and assessment, all of that needs to be done immediately, because we don't have time. Time is not on our side. Because just as quickly as the world is adapting to the new normal, a post-COVID world, Tobago has to also be able to adapt to that post-COVID world. And before COVID, we were already some steps behind. So we have some more catching up to do. And the time to do that is now. The time for us to really jumpstart our development is now. And that is why one of the things that I have to advocate strongly for as your member of parliament for Tobago West is that increased allocation for Tobago. I made mention yesterday of the process. I talked about the Dispute Resolution Commission report. And yes, I focused a lot on Dr. Rowley's comments because he really got me upset. I don't want to go back there, but he really got me upset. But let's come back to talking about the allocation. That allocation was decided on 4.03%. Hey, here, look, we have Mr. Duke in the studio. Right. Let me finish my point, and then we'll get Mr. Duke to come in. That allocation was 4.03% to 6.9%, and we've never gotten close to that 6.9%. And we are now in 2020, which is 20 years after the fact. And nobody could tell me that the cost of living hasn't increased exponentially from that time to now. That Tobago does not deserve a revision of that, and a revision in an upward direction. Because Tobago's development, Tobago needs capital investment in order to develop itself. The plan is not to go cap in hand into Trinidad for the next 10, 20, 50 years. The plan is that if we do it right, and we do it right this time, then we are able to achieve our financial independence. So I have a call coming in. Let me just take that call. Good morning, caller, you're live.
Good morning.
Hi, morning, I'm hearing you.
Good morning, and good morning to you. Good morning to you.
Do you have your radio on, sir?
Let me take it down.
Yes, please.
Can you
Thanks.
hear me now?
Yes, I'm hearing you better. Thank you.
Yes, let me commend you for brilliant ideas and excellent. I think no one can say that you are not worthy and you're not capable of representing Tobago. You are dealing with hard issues and excellent issues. And I just want to commend you and encourage you to continue fighting. I just want to just show you, I think your topic has to do with ideas. And I believe that in relationship to the community, there are some things that can be done in communities, like trade, simple trade, and life skills, carpentry, mason, block laying, tile laying, and a number of simple skills, especially for young people who have been going to secondary school and are not doing anything. I think that in every community, for example, mechanic and those simple trades, I think is a good way of having these things decentralized. Instead of having it in one area, I believe that having it in every community in Tobago to take care of the people in the community I believe is a wonderful idea. So I'm saying that you have been presenting a lot of ideas for Tobago, and keep up the good work. I believe people out there are listening, and I don't know why they are not calling in, but just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a tremendous job in terms of edifying Tobago and, bringing the vision, and so that, we in Tobago can, look at the issues, look at the serious issues, and make a more informed and an intelligent decision in this upcoming national election. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that call. Yes, I mean, walking around in the communities, you can see that there is a need. Yeah? And that whatever programs we had before are just not meeting the needs of the people at the level that they need to be met at. I want to introduce, oh my goodness, he wants us to play the song, the very very catchy.
Man.
Time for Zest, so I'll have the DJ load up that song again to introduce our esteemed political leader of the Progressive Democratic Patriots, Mr. Watson Duke. So let's have that song.
Yo, this is Trinidad presented for Watson Duke. Tasha B representing Tobago East and West. Digest. PDP, feel the power, feel the power, feel the power of the Tobago fighter. Feel the power, feel the power, feel the power of the Tobago fighter. Boom. Watson Duke he coming down. From door to door he coming strong. PDP we on the ground. And we not running from the sun. Fixing your roof and all your drains. Tobago will never be the same. PNM is a set again. We not voting PNM again. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. PDP party, them is the best. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. Watson Duke will relieve your stress. Boom. PNM lead the place in a mess. Old and the young coming out of the nest. The 10th of August to do what is best. Time to put PNM to rest. When Duke on the road to success, Tobago tourism will be the best, yes. Will be the best, yes. What we call that? Watson Duke. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. PDP party, them is the best. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. PDP party, them is the best. Feel the power, feel the power, feel the power of the Tobago fighter. Feel the power, feel the power, feel the power of the Tobago fighter. Feel the power, feel the power, feel the power of the Tobago fighter. Feel the power, feel the power, feel the power of the Tobago fighter. When them sleep, when Tasha out on the street, when them rest, you done beat them down in the rest. When you hit the road on the road to success, Tobago tourism will be the best, yes. Will be the best, yes. Watson Duke, PDP, Tasha B. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. Time for we to put PNM to rest. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. Digest, digest, digest. Tasha B, she is the best, yes. Feel the power, feel the power, feel the power. Yo, this is Trinidad presenting for PDP. Watson Duke, Tasha B. Beat them in the east, beat them in the west. Rah!
What love is the anthem?
Yes. That is Zest. And we have our mighty, our powerful, our esteemed, our... What can I say? He is Zest himself. When you look in the vocabulary, if you look in the dictionary and you look for the word Zest, you will see his name and his face. I want to present to our listening audience, I want to introduce the leader of the Progressive Democratic Patriots, Mr. Watson Solomon Duke.
Yeah.
And Tashia Grace Burris, I must admit I'm happy to have you as my running mate in the West. I would have no other.
Thank you.
And I'm saying to Tobago now, Tashia Grace Burris and Watson Solomon Duke, we are a political pair. We are a political pair, and we are ready to take on whatsoever the fight is on behalf of all, I say all Tobagonians, even our Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, who will be known as just Dr. Keith Rowley after the 10th, and our former Chief Secretary, Mr. Hochoy Charles, who will just be known as Mr. Hochoy Charles after the 10th. This fight is about transformation. And sometimes we think of transformation as buildings. We think of transformation as a new piece of paint on the wall. But I remember I read somewhere where there were a group of biblical people who presented themselves to be clean and honest and true on the outside, but they were rotten on the inside. And what the master teacher said to them is this: you all are like whitened sepulchres, clean on the outside, but inside filled of dead men bones. We're talking transformation this morning. It doesn't matter how outside look. It doesn't matter how they come to you as a knight in shining armor, riding on a P&M dark black red horse, saying to you, we're going to give you self-government. We're going to give you Sanders. We're going to give you 2 new boats. I asked them, where is self-government? Where is Sanders? Where are the 2 new boats? Huh? What have they given you? They give you nothing but hell. Be careful. All mutual funds are not the same. We should get some zesty right now. we need to get some zest. Call Mega Bible for me.
Where the DJ?
Let me get some zest. I have to learn to play this DJ thing, you know.
I think you
because
should.
when I'm waxing warm,
Jump on the ones
I want a little gasoline to pump me up, Tashia. You could imagine this?
That is it.
This is us. Give me some of these things, man. I'll show you how to walk this thing, you know. How to pull up in the man, how to jump in, how to scratch and thing. Because the people here want to know that we're versatile. We're talking transformation. We're talking transformation. Give me some zesty, man. Give me all the zesty.
Represented for Watson Duke. Tasha B, representing Tobago East and West. Digest. PDP, feel the power, feel the power, feel the power of the Tobago fighter. Feel the power, feel the power, feel the power of the Tobago fighter. Boom. Watson Duke, he coming down. From door to door, he coming strong. PDP, we on the ground. And we not running from the sun. Fixing your roof and all your drains. Tobago will never be the same. PNM is a set again. We not voting PNM again. Digest. PDP party, them is the best. Digest. Yo, this is Trinidad presented.
The PDP candidate for Tobago West is waxing warm.
Real one.
And I'm on fire. I came on fire this morning because we are talking transformation. How could you have transformation when your ideas are the same? When you go about solving problems, the same. That's not transformation. They say you could take a pig out of the mud, but you can't take the mud out of the pig. Some of these things are psychologically embedded in the subconscious. Don't you think so, Tash?
Yes, I think so. I mean, the idea is that they will come back to you, and they will come back in your spaces begging you for the vote, you know. But then ask them. I keep telling you guys since I started this program, question them.
Yes, question them.
Ask them what happened to the autonomy bill. Ask them what happened to ensuring that Tobago Sea Bridge and Air Bridge was operating at a standard that was respectable for Tobagonians. Ask them about even the issues that we face with clearing barrels and these things at customs, that people have to go to Trinidad at the port and wait for days. Ask them these
Ask them
questions.
that.
How have you improved the lives of Tobagonians?
Tell
How
them.
do you intend to improve the lives of Tobagonians? What is your track record? What is your level of success?
All
What
right.
have you done for us? What have you stood up and advocated
Tell
for
them,
on our
tell them.
behalf in Parliament? Ask them the questions. Talk the things. I want you guys to, because you guys are the employers, you know.
Yeah, right.
You guys have to conduct the interviews, you know.
And the performance
I have-
appraisals.
And the performance
Yes.
appraisals, because Mr. Duke and I are new applicants for the job. There's a vacancy. The Parliament has been
There are two
dissolved.
vacancies.
So
As a matter
there
of
are
fact-
two
As a
vacancies.
matter of fact, Tashim, let's cut here to see this. There are 3 vacancies. One for Prime Minister.
Yes, yes, yes,
And
yes,
one
of
for
course.
Tobago East.
Of course.
And one for
Of
Tobago
course.
West. There are 3
there are 3 vacancies.
And we can fill any of those.
And we can fill any of those 3. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind.
Why? That is this.
The thing is that there are vacancies that exist, and Mr. Duke and I have presented ourselves as the applicants to fill these 2 vacancies. There were 2 persons who were there before. It is a performance appraisal time. You need to rate their performance,
That's right.
and they need to be able to account for you for the areas that they fell down. They need to face you,
Poor performance.
right? They
Poor
need to face you.
performance.
And they
I want
need
to ask, I want to pause, you know. I just want to ask a question to my good friend, former Chief Secretary, Mr. Ochoa Charles. If anyone knows him, give him a phone call for me. Tell him, like, just stop digging the potatoes a little bit and just put on his radio. All right? He's a serious farmer, and I'm glad for that. He's an honorable man. But ask him the question for me. Ask him, what did he do to get himself out of office? I mean, the man was in his 50s. He was young. He was strong. He was a heavy roller. He worked hard. Why is it that Tobago people never, ever put him back into office? And what is this thirst he has with power that he's now looking to make about 80, 90, and he's just behind it still? You know, I've appealed to Mr. Charles. I've begged him. As a matter of fact, I've written to him most recently on Sunday a letter asking to meet with him so we can discuss about Tobago. Because this is not my fight, Tash. It's not your fight. This is a Tobago fight. For years before we were born, since 1889, when we were forced to become a ward of a lesser territory, though a bigger island, but a lesser territory, a territory that did not know about self-government, a territory that did not have at that time any elected officials. Tobago came from a place since 1769 where we knew of elected officials. They were elected officials, they were General Assembly and a legislative council in Tobago. All right? Tobago knew about that type of bicameral system since the 1700s. Trinidad only knew of a bicameral system in 1961. You hear me?
Yes.
1961 around there. So how could you take a greater nation and make it a ward to a lesser nation and not have the people dissatisfied with their position? A place that used to send goods around the world, because at one time our sugar was known as the best sugar in the Caribbean. And there was an old saying, rich as a Tobago sugar planter. There was that saying coined in the English term, you better rich like a Tobago sugar planter, because these planters made money.
Yes.
So how come Tobago has found itself in that subjected position that we're talking from since 1889 to present? Tash and I are now taking up the fight to redeem Tobago to its former glory, to its former prestige. And we have people who have had the opportunity. People like the former Chief Secretary, Mr. Ochoa Charles. What did you do with your first 4 years? Did you operate it so bad that Tobago voluntarily put you out of office and you have never regained ground but lose ground, and you are coming to us now and tell us to give you a chance when you're almost 80, suffering all different kind of diseases? Come on, man. Come on, man. Jump on board. Jump on board. Let the young Black Panthers fight for you.
Yes.
Let us fight and defend Tobago.
Because youth
Go ahead,
has
Tash.
to lead the way. I mean, we have to look at this
Talk to
as a
things.
really race. This race, this idea of this Tobago being able to stand on its own, Dr. Murray and Mr. Robinson ran the first leg of that race on our behalf.
Talk it in.
Mr. Ho Choi Charles had the leg of that race to run, and he ran it well.
Yes.
Because he was able to take the then government to court and get us that range.
But he found himself out of power after.
But the thing, and that is why it's important to pass the baton now, because the final leg of the race is outstanding. And he is not in the position to run it at this time.
How long now since we have this House of Assembly? 1980 to 2000,
1980
right?
to 2020, so this
That's
is now
40 years. You know, 40 is a significant number.
Yes, it is.
Very significant, you know.
And we found ourselves in the 40th year of its existence seeing that institution being disrespected, seeing that institution being eroded, seeing that institution being operated like a parlor with bacchanal and corruption and backstabbing and all kind of thing going on. And Tobagonians are fed up.
They're burnt out.
We fed up.
They're burnt out. And to have, let me be honorable, a man like my good friend, former Chief Secretary, Ho Choi Charles, with the fire already gone from him, and all you are seeing now is the coals, coming to tell Tobago that he's able to lead them. Lead out of what? What knowledge he has that we don't have? Huh? You know who invented Facebook? Young man. You know who invented WhatsApp? Young people. It's young people running the world today because the world has changed. You don't fight as you used to fight anymore. If you're not in step with the world, you'll be left behind. As a matter of fact, I recognize I'm passing on to old age. So when I want to do certain things, I call my 9-year-old son and say, hey, fix that TV for me. Because you know, I have digital TV now, which is computerized kind of thing. I say that thing come up, I don't understand it. Fix it for me. And I said, that is small thing, plop, plop, plops. You get into it. Because they take time understanding the intricate things. Going down to Trinidad and demanding from Trinidad legislative independence is a big transformation. Because for the last 40 years, Tash, we have been there, we have not made one single law. Not Ho Choi Charles. Ho Choi Charles spent 4 years there. Ask him how much laws he made. Not one. Not one law he made, Tash. Not one law. London spent 16 years there. Ask London how much law he made. Not one law. But don't talk about the others. Even when Robinson was there, he spent years, he did not make one law. The truth is, Tobago is no less than California, no less than New York, no less than Washington, no less than Hamburg, no less than Frankfurt, no less than these states within a bigger country. If we are talking governance, there must be a governance model that is appropriate for Tobagonians. The Africans and Tobagonians are different. And I say that statement without fear of contradiction. The Africans in Tobago are different from the Africans from Trinidad. It's a different mindset, a different way they live, a different cultural inheritance. They have to respect that. We in Tobago, we know about land. Land means something to us.
Yes.
The average African in Trinidad doesn't understand land. This Indian who understand land in Trinidad, Indian understand land. But Tobagonians understand land, very important, because we were born into wealth. All of us were born knowing our grandfather, grandmother leave land for us. And even if we don't have a deed, we know we have land.
Yes.
That's, I sure you know you have land somewhere about in Tobago.
Yes. Oh, yes, I do.
Because we were born with that.
We were
so
born
with wealth.
And that's part of our inheritance. And I mean, I want to be able to understand
talk the things,
really
man.
how blessed you are. And we just need to harness those blessings. We need to come together and unite to drive transformation on the island. Because I was talking about the fact that this thing is a relay race. And the last leg of the race is two main things. The things that Mr. Duke and I want to bring home for Tobago is our lawmaking powers. Our ability in our space to determine how we manage ourselves and how we police ourselves. We need our legislative authorities. And we also need our executive authority outside of the interference of any cabinet. Everything that the Tobago House of Assembly would want to do for the people of Tobago is subject to cabinet authority. If they are talking about equality of status, if they are talking about side by side, they have to trust that the Tobagonian people know who is best equipped to